Never even once saw a doctor. But his nephews heard about our mission with Operation Smile in Lima, Peru, and brought him to us, hopeful that maybe there was something we could do. Every 3 minutes, somewhere in the world, a child is born with a cleft. There are cleft lips. Never even once saw a doctor. But his nephews heard about our mission with Operation Smile in Lima, Peru, and brought him to us, hopeful that maybe there was something we could do. Every 3 minutes, somewhere in the world, a child is born with a cleft. There are cleft lips. Never even once saw a doctor. But his nephews heard about our mission with Operation Smile in Lima, Peru, and brought him to us, hopeful that maybe there was something we could do.
Total tested positive, 14,000
Every 3 minutes, somewhere in the world, a child is born with a cleft.
Is in the healthcare
There are cleft
system.
lips.
A deadly pandemic has cut a swathe through America's biggest city.
Never even
And
once saw a
Filipino
doctor.
Nurses
But his
are in the
nephews
heart
heard
of
about
the
our
battle.
mission with Operation
Filipino
Smile in Lima, Peru,
new
and
cases.
brought
very
him to us,
friendly. We're
hopeful
very
that maybe there was
caring.
something we
Total
could do.
tested positive.
150,000
Every 3
nurses in
minutes,
the Philippines
somewhere in the
make up
world,
the
a
largest
child is born with a
Is
cleft.
in the healthcare
There are
the
cleft
largest
lips.
foreign contingent of healthcare workers. A deadly pandemic has cut a swathe through America's biggest city. The American
Never
dream
even once
has
saw a
become
doctor.
more like a nightmare. Nurses
But his
are in the
nephews
heart
heard
of
about
the
our
battle.
mission with Operation Smile in Lima,
And the
Peru,
pandemic
and brought
is
him
just
to
the
us,
latest challenge.
hopeful that maybe there was
False
something we
promises
could
of
do.
where to work,
150,000
Every 3
nurses in
minutes,
the Philippines
somewhere in
make
the
up
world,
the
a
largest
child is born with a
is
cleft.
in the
There
healthcare
are cleft
largest
lips.
for the Filipino healthcare workers. A deadly pandemic has cut a swathe through America's biggest city. The American
Never
dream
even once
has
saw a
become
doctor.
more like a nightmare. Nurses
But his
are in the
nephews
heart
heard
of
about
the
our
battle.
mission with Operation Smile in Lima,
And the
Peru,
pandemic
and
is
brought him
just
to
the
us,
latest challenge.
hopeful that maybe there was
false
something we
promises
could
of
do.
where to work,
150,000
Every 3
nurses in
minutes,
the Philippines
somewhere in
make
the
up
world,
the
a
largest
child is born with a cleft.
in the
There
healthcare
are cleft
largest
lips.
for the Filipino healthcare workers. A deadly pandemic has cut a swathe through.
And it's so eerie because nobody goes out now, so the streets are so quiet. All you hear are just the sirens, the ambulance.
Lyra Catalan is a nurse at New York's Kohler Rehabilitation and Nursing Care Center.
Building A, B, and C. So I work in the C building.
It's America's largest long-term care facility. Lyra's lived in New York for 8 years. In March, she was meant to be visiting family back in the Philippines. But when the pandemic hit, Lyra was stuck in her New York apartment instead, where she started getting alarming messages from colleagues.
This is the cheap stuff, and we had to treat people that are contaminated with coronavirus.
And make our own head mask.
And this is how we expose ourselves and take a lot of chances every day.
I would hear a lot of things from the hospital, so I was scared for myself. I don't want to be part of the statistics. I don't want to die. I mean, my kids still need me.
Kohler has denied any lack of protective equipment for its staff. But Lyra was still worried enough to take matters into her own hands, raising money on social media for extra protection.
We were able to raise 1,600 something. And I bought face shields and N95 masks to give out to my co-workers in the unit. I work with people.
Armed with her supplies, Lyra returned to the job she loves, caring for patients.
This one in our PPE.
She also keeps photos from the life she left behind.
What's this one about?
That's my team in GE Money Bank.
Lyra was a senior bank manager in the Philippines before retraining as a nurse in order to move to the US. She'd set her sights on providing a better life for her family, even though it meant leaving her 3 children behind with her mother.
My ex-husband was here already in 2005. So the plan was to migrate with the kids. If I migrate as a banker, it would be hard for me to work here. But if I'm a nurse, it would be easier.
Lyra found 2 nursing jobs in New York and began working up to 17 hours a day. Her 2 sons have since joined her, and she's desperate to protect them from the virus.
When I go home, I already take off my scrubs. Actually, in the parking lot, I already take it off. I don't care if somebody sees me.
No matter how many precautions she takes, nursing in New York is now filled with anxiety. Lyra says when she had to pursue one of her dementia patients into a COVID-contaminated ward, she forgot to put on protective gear.
I was exposed like maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes inside, so I'm kind of paranoid. That's why I had myself tested yesterday. If there's no COVID...
Lyra's test results came back negative, but showed she had already been infected earlier. While she had no symptoms, her friend Gemma wasn't so lucky.
When I had the fever for 2-3 days, I went to the hospital.
Gemma Peña Florida Balactus, another Filipino nurse, works on a COVID-19 ward at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens. It's in one of the poorest and most ethnically diverse areas of the city, and it's been the epicenter of the pandemic in New York. Gemma and her family live near the hospital. For the past few months, death has been all around them.
At that time, there was no testing for staff.
And simply getting tested for the virus wasn't easy.
It was raining that day, and the line for the testing is so long. So the supervisor told me, you just go home because you might get much sicker if you wait for your turn to be tested. At first, I was thinking, oh, what if I got...
Gemma was feverish and sick for 2 weeks.
When I
It was
had fever,
COVID-19.
I really had the coronavirus.
And how did you feel?
I was so scared. I was so scared thinking that my family was with me in the apartment and we don't have that PPE. And the apartment is just like a 2-bedroom apartment. It's small, you know. So I stayed in the room and my husband was the one taking care of me. Like he's bringing everything that I need in the room. And my children were instructed to just stay in another room.
We can't manage work like this. That's why I use Monday.com. My team uses it to manage projects, sales, recruitment, everything. Who the hell are you? I'm you. 1 minute into the future. What happened to you? Check this out. You put...
Okay man, okay na.
Her friends in the Filipino community, like Jason Pacheco, were worried about more than her health.
She wasn't sure whether or not she was going to get paid for her sick days or the days that she was in quarantine. There was a nurse who was telling us...
Jason knew Gemma before she came to the US. She nursed his dying father back in the Philippines, and they've remained close ever since.
Kamusta na cases sa Elmhurst?
Medyo pababa na. Pero COVID pa rin eh.
When he heard Gemma was sick, Jason also organised a fundraiser to help cover her expenses.
This sort of heroism, like I can't do what they're doing out there in the front lines. And having a face that I could put in front of all the news and the heroism that you hear, I just had to do something.
It was so kind of him to do that. Yeah, he's awesome.
Gemma and her husband Michael were thrilled when they moved here 3 years ago.
Yeah, back in the Philippines, I just saw New York like in the magazine and in the movies. But when I got here, it feels so amazing that I was really in New York. Like when I got a picture of me in front of the Empire State Building, I feel like this is it. I'm already in the US, yeah.
Even so, the COVID-19 crisis in New York made them question their decision to move here.
I was scared to go back to work actually. I was thinking of resigning Because, having this experience of coronavirus is very traumatic.
But Gemma's brush with the virus has now made her even more determined to help others.
It has impacted a lot because, nothing on earth is important except life. So I have to take care of my patients because having this experience, I know how they feel. It really gives me the courage to really look after them and take care of them.
Filipino nurses' characteristics of being industrious, very polite, very dedicated and committed to their work.
Leo Felix Gerardo is Executive Director of the Philippine Nurses Association of America and a Professor of Nursing at William Patterson University. He says the Philippines' deep commitment to the profession began over 100 years ago during the US occupation.
At that time, there were many soldiers, American soldiers in the Philippines, and they started training Philippine nurses to take care of the US soldiers.
After World War II, the system intensified as the Americans set up more training programs and a new visa system allowing Filipino nurses to easily move to the US.
You have 10 minutes to finish your research. You rush into searching on Google, then you find a title that sounds credible. You enter the page and start reading with all your attention. By the time you read through the entire thing, you realize the content actually has nothing to do with the title. Ugh! You're so frustrated. But then you suddenly think of this cool productivity tool, Liner. Being super desperate, you download Liner and start searching again. What's this Mint line? Trusted by 35 Liner users? Sounds even more credible than the fancy title you saw last time. You enter the page and bam! It tells you where all the important information is right.
By the late 60s, Filipino nurses were heading all over the world.
The Philippine nurses were celebrated as ambassadors because of how much they have contributed to the Philippine economy. They improve the livelihood of their families. They were able to send members of their families to school, and they were able to improve their way of living.
Today, the Philippines is the largest exporter of nurses globally. New York even has its own Little Manila, and it's estimated that 25% of the Filipinos who live in New York State and the surrounding area work in healthcare. They come in search of a better life, but the pandemic has made it a more dangerous life.
I think I miss most his presence. Whenever he was around, he always gave such a comforting smile. So him not being here is hard because now we realize we have to be that for each other. So.
Denise and Alan's father, Ali Guillermo, died of COVID-19 in early April. He'd worked at the same hospital on Long Island since he moved to the US 16 years ago.
I always bonded with him through our love of photography. This one he took while he was on a shift in the emergency room with some of his colleagues.
Ali passed away in the same ICU ward where he'd been caring for infected patients just a few weeks earlier.
They say that he brought around a presence with him where you could trust what he's doing. Like not even just the nurses, but the doctors, they confide in him to, reassure themselves. And it just really showed that he was really good at his job.
Yeah, you must be very proud of him.
Yeah.
Ali had been intubated and put on dialysis in a desperate attempt to save him. His children saw him in the hospital before he died.
It was hard to see him all swollen and stuff, so it was just a nightmare to see him in that way, and it was very hard. I wouldn't wish for any kid to see their dad in that state. It's terrible.
It also just it reminded me of how fragile he really was.
Ali's funeral turned into a moving show of support from his co-workers, emergency workers, and the Filipino community.
I always knew that my dad was a hero. Like, as a nurse, he's always helping people. Now that he's like really recognized as a hero, it just means so much more.
Sewing isn't what you do, it's part of who you are. At Craftsy, we understand that handmade means more. Whether you're just getting started or looking to advance your sewing skills, our world-class instruction is here to help. From the basics of fabric and thread to complex stitches and projects, Craftsy's instructors will guide and encourage you, empowering you to take your ideas from thought to action. And today, we have a special offer just for you. Sign up for Craftsy Premium membership for only $249 and get a whole year of unlimited access to over 1,500 classes from world-renowned experts. That's 97% off the regular price and one of our lowest prices ever. Whether you're just getting started with sewing or looking to advance your skills, or perhaps you want to pick up a new craft altogether, Craftsy is here to help. Join today and start turning ideas into projects you
Ali Dennis Huevo, New York.
Outside the White House, activists held a grim roll call of the nurses like Ali who have died of COVID-19 across the country.
Covina, California.
Nursing unions are demanding help and equipment to prevent more nurses from dying.
If you don't protect us, we can't protect our patients.
Filipino-American nurses have been disproportionately affected. By the end of June, nearly 50 had died already. Leo Felix believes there are several reasons.
Many of our Filipino-American nurses work closely at the bedside. In our more recent surveys, it showed that at least 60% of Filipino-American nurses work in acute care, critical care.
He believes this puts them at higher risk of being infected with COVID-19. But there's another more complex factor at play too. What Leo Felix calls the bamboo ceiling, which hinders Filipino nurses who try to get promoted off the wards into more senior positions.
Filipino nurses are very respectful and very obedient to their employers. And they didn't really question authorities. So they're seen as less assertive, so they may not necessarily get those positions of management.
He says these traits also make them vulnerable to unscrupulous employers. One group of nurses turned to lawyer Oscar Michelin for help in a bitter legal fight against their employer.
The weight of the case was not just that they were facing a year in prison, it was that they would be deported.
The fight was against New York's biggest nursing home network, Sentosa Care. When Oscar's clients were recruited in the Philippines, they signed up to work at specific nursing homes. But when they arrived, they found themselves working elsewhere, in breach of their visa conditions.
What happened was they were moved to other facilities that were owned by the same global corporation, but were not the name listed on their direct hire applications. And then when they got here, they had other issues with respect to how they were treated, how they were paid.
The nurses say they were overworked, underpaid, squeezed into crowded housing, and denied insurance. When they eventually quit their jobs in 2006, pro bono lawyer Felix Vinluan tried to start official investigations both here and in the Philippines. But Sentosa intervened.
They were able to engage a senior U.S. senator from New York, Chuck Schumer, to write letters to the Philippine consulate that ended up stopping the investigation in the Philippines. The letters went all the way up to the president of the Philippines.
What happened next was extraordinary. Local district attorney Thomas Spota charged the nurses and Felix with conspiring to harm their patients. Oscar then took up their case and argued that the entire prosecution was unconstitutional.
By saying that it was a crime to quit your job, essentially the prosecution violated the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which of course prohibits slavery and involuntary servitude.
Some of the nurses' contracts also contained exit penalties. That meant if they worked for Sentosa for less than 3 years, they had to pay the company $25,000. Oscar argued these were illegal penalties, unrelated to any actual financial loss suffered by the company. As the case dragged on, it took a heavy toll on the nurses.
They were depressed, they were distressed, they were despondent, they were extraordinarily concerned.
Across the country, the Filipino community mobilized in support, led by groups such as the Philippine Nurses Association of America.
We raise funds for them. We raise legal funds. We supported them by joining rallies, supporting them in court.
When the appeals court finally made its ruling, the nurses won on all counts.
And what was the mood that day? Festive is the best way to describe it. They felt their lives were handed back to them. It was a huge weight lifted off of everybody. If they would have come home convicted of that charge, it would have changed their lives entirely. They would not have been able to work in healthcare in the States or the Philippines. So everything was riding on this criminal prosecution.
Oscar says in a later civil case, Sentosa ended up paying the nurses a confidential sum in an out-of-court settlement.
here in the Philippines, so I am a sophomore, and I'm
Anak, you have to be a nurse, ha? You have to grow up, you have to be a nurse, okay?
Don't get me started with clinical rotations. Taking this kind of course is rumored to be kind of toxic. Hey, it's Ellie, welcome back to my channel. And today, as you can tell by what I'm wearing, we are going to be doing a nursing related video. So a lot of people have been requesting this video, and it is all about tips for incoming nursing students. So I'll be telling you guys the top 10 things that I wish I knew before starting nursing school. So if you guys don't know, I am a second-year nursing student here in the Philippines, so I am a sophomore, and I'm so excited to share with you guys all of my tips for you. Now, a little disclaimer, all of these tips are from my experience and my experience only. I can't speak for every nursing student or every nursing school because they're all different, but I hope you guys can get something out of it. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. Oh, but first, little prop. Wala lang, para cool. Okay, so the first thing that you should know is that the school or the university that you will choose is very important. Now, I know the first thing that incoming freshmen are thinking about when choosing a school is which one's the best, which one's top performing, and I know that is not the only thing that you should consider when choosing a school. One of the most important things that I realized that you have to consider in choosing a school is the location. Before, I actually got into a university that is so far away from my home, and that was probably one of the most hardest experiences of my life. I had to wake up at 3 a.m. just to leave at around 4 just to get there on time. I'd get home at around 9 p.m. and then I'd have to do schoolwork, and it was just so toxic, and it was just, I couldn't handle it anymore. Now I go to a university that is so much more closer to where I live, and honestly, my college experience has never been smoother. Going to a university that is close to you is so important, especially because of the kind of schedules that nursing students have. My classes start as early as 7 a.m. and don't get me started with clinical rotations. We have clinical rotations in our own school's hospital sometimes, and they want us to be there as early as 5:30 a.m. Now imagine if you lived far away from your university. That's just, I can't even imagine. That being said, tip number 2 is that you have to be a morning person. During the majority of the week, I have to wake up at around 5 to 5:30 a.m. but maybe that's just because I'm really slow in the morning. But Wednesdays and Thursdays are super crucial because those are the days that we have clinical rotations and we have to wake up super early, especially when you're a morning shift. The latest you'll probably have to go is 7 a.m. but our clinical instructors want us there 30 minutes before the call time, so that is 6:30 a.m. Lately, my call time has been 6 a.m. which means I have to be there at 5:30. Be a morning person. The third thing you should know is that time management is everything. Now, I know I am definitely not the most certified person to say that, but I'm working on it. So my schedule consists of 6 school days in 1 week. And if you guys don't know, there's only 7 days in a week, which means I only have 1 day to rest, which I can't really rest because I have to study for a huge quiz for the next day. Anyways, as you can see, nursing school is very stressful. To be honest though, the subjects aren't that hard to learn if you look at them separately. But what makes it hard is that the teachers assign so many things at the same time. So you really have to know how to manage your time, especially when you have clinical rotations. Sometimes on clinical rotations we have night shifts, so that's usually until 10 p.m. So you'd get home at around 10:30, 11, depending on where you live. But then once you get home, you still have to study for a quiz that you have early the next morning. So you really need to know how to manage your time. The fourth thing that you should know is that nursing school is never-ending studying. Never ending. Like I said, I go to school for 6 days, so that means 6 days of classes and lectures and duty, and then we have that 1 day rest, which we actually don't rest. We study because we have tons of quizzes the next day. There really isn't a day when there's nothing to do because nursing really eats up your time. That being said, the fifth thing that you should know is that you need to know your learning style. Do you learn better when you write things down? Do you learn better when you say things out loud? Do you learn better by yourself? Do you learn better when you're with other people? You need to figure this out to know what helps you study effectively. If you guys are interested in seeing what my personal studying routine is, just comment down below and I just might make a video about it. Now that you know that nursing is full of studying, I'd like to move on to the next tip. You need to know that academics are not everything. Of course, we have to aim to get good grades and pass our classes. No one wants to fail. But it is inevitable that you will get a bad grade on a quiz or on an exam once in a while, but that's normal. Don't be so tough on yourself when this happens, because these grades do not define what you are capable of. And there are still plenty of opportunities to make up for it. The next thing that you should know is that nursing school is challenging, and you probably already figured that out based on my previous tips. Every single college course is hard, but when I tell you that nursing is hard, man, it's hard. But when things get challenging, you have to remember why you chose this in the first place. The reason why I chose nursing is not because I'm Filipino and my parents told me to, like,
Anak, you have to be a nurse, ha? You have to grow up, you have to be a nurse, okay?
no, that's not what happened. I actually decided to pursue this myself because I absolutely love helping people, and I want to do something that'll always keep me on my feet. Being a second-year nursing student, I figured out that I really love being all over the place in the hospital or in the health center. I love it when they're like,
oh, Ellie, gawin mo to. Oh, Ellie, gawin mo yan. Oh, Ellie, tulungan mo to. Tulungan mo siya.
I love the rush, I love helping people, I just love it all. And I especially love the patients' reactions when I help them. I still remember the first time that I delivered a baby. It was a baby girl. Here's her photo. This is with the patient's consent. I am allowed to post that. And the mother literally held my hand and she just like thanked me with teary eyes. She was like, thank you talaga ha, tinulungan mo talaga ako. It was such a heartwarming and humbling experience, and I just love feeling that feeling over and over and over again. But that brings us to the next thing that you need to know about nursing school. Nursing is not a joke. People's lives are literally being put in your hands. And something that you really need to put in your mind is that when you're dealing with real people, you can't afford to make mistakes. I know, nakaka-pressure, but it's the truth. That's why you have to take your studies seriously. Even though I said that it's okay to get a low grade once in a while, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't push yourself to get even better grades. Nursing is all about improving yourself and gaining knowledge every day, because no patient wants a nurse who doesn't know what they're doing. Real talk na yan ha, real talk, real talk. Now, as a nursing student, it's not only our duty to take care of others, but it's also our duty to take care of ourselves. You have to remember to take care of yourself. Taking this kind of course is rumored to be kind of toxic. Toxic as in school is the only thing we know, the only thing we do is study, we don't have time for anything else. I have some classmates who don't even get to see their family most of the time because they have to stay in their dorms and study, and we barely get any sleep, and that is all true, that is all true. So that's why you really need to remember to take care of yourself. Take some time to show yourself some love, you know, eat well, exercise, go out. Well, don't go out right now. No thanks to the coronavirus. Also, just take some time to really breathe and just rest. Just give yourself rest. That is where time management comes in. Despite all of the things that you have to do, you need to find time to rest. Don't allow yourself to get so invested with everything that's going on to the point that you don't take care of yourself. And that leads me to my final tip, which is have a good support system. It is so important to surround yourself with friends that keep you sane and family that really supports what you're doing and understands you. So if you have a good group of friends and really supportive family, don't forget to tell them how much you love and appreciate them. And if you're someone who knows a nursing student, whether it's your daughter, your son, your friend, your cousin, don't forget to show them support and always understand them, because they are going through a lot. And let us not forget the most important support system of all, which is our Heavenly Father, because He is the one that will get us through anything. So always remember to pray to Him, not only when you're in trouble, but also when you succeed.
Hello, Sir Prince. Nakamute po kayo?
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good day, future nurses, faculty, and staff. Welcome to the opening ceremony of Nurses Week 2021 with the theme Nurses, a voice to lead, a vision for future healthcare. We, scientists Gianna Biliedo and Mary Maldo Rivera, your masters of ceremony. You are here today for the opening of the ceremony of our Nurses Week. Before we begin our proper program, may we hear a prayer for the blessing of this morning's gathering, to be led by Mr. Aaron Wisdom Sion, the Health Society PIO, followed by the National Anthem and PLTI.
Okay, so start na ba? Okay. Okay, so let's pray. Yes, maraming salamat Panginoon sa panibagong araw na binigay mo sa amin. Maraming salamat Panginoon dahil sa kahit na may mga ilan sa amin dito ay nawalan ng mahal sa buhay Panginoon, ngunit patuloy pa rin Panginoon na nakikita namin ang kabutihan mo dahil patuloy mo kaming pinakaiingatan Panginoon dahil alam mo Panginoon na magagamit mo pa kami in the near future, Father God. And Lord, as aspiring nurses, Father God, nandito kami, Panginoon, para ipagdiwang din namin ang mga buhay ng mga nurses, Panginoon. Nakita namin, Panginoon, kung paano mo sila gamitin sa mga panahong ito, sa mga panahong may pandemic, Panginoon. Sila ang mga pinunta mo sa harapan na ginamit mo, Panginoon. Nawa ikaw pa po ang patuloy na gumabay sa kanila. I-bless mo po sila at bigyan mo lahat ng kalakasan ang mga nurses na ito, Panginoon. At sa mga gagawin naming activity ngayon, Panginoon, ikaw ang patuloy na gumabay sa bawat isa, sa lahat ng mga coordinator, sa lahat ng mga facilitators. So, ito lamang aming dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, ewas ng sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinagang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihilig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang may di magdidilig. Lumalang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. As the sun rises in days, as the baby rose to his feet, so a flower flows from his bud to take a babe of the land. As the stars are shining in the sky, lightning pass at every mind, so a school that opens every heart to people of every walking life. This is PLTC, brother as can be, soaring like eagles, roaring like the sea. Simple beginning and it's now shining. PLTC flies all through the sky, like a tree that bears no fruit, tended by hands, seals, and hard work. So a school that offers you the best that one could ever wish and ever pray. This is PLTC, brother as can be, soaring like eagles, soaring like the sea. Simple beginning and it's now shining. PLTC flies all through the sky. PLT colors incorporated in simple and humble everything. Commitment to service and excellence for the glory of the divine providence. This is PLTC, brother as can be, soaring like eagles, soaring like the sea. Simple beginning and it's now shining. PLTC flies all through the sky. PLTC flies all through the sky. PLTC flies all through the sky.
Moving on, let's welcome Health Society Advisor, the wonderful and marvelous Miss Danyata Umaging, a registered nurse, for the opening remarks.
Good morning, my dear future nurses. Once again, good morning, my dear future nurses. Be a nurse. And a nurse stands for nurturing, understanding, resourceful, skilled, and empathetic. This week, we celebrate all nurses at PLT College Incorporated. Each of you is raising the bar in new ways, creating strong teams and working in service to others. It is your passion and hard work that will help us shape the future of healthcare. The International Council of Nurses theme for the Nurses Week is Nurses, a Voice to Lead. This year, more than ever, we are looking to your voices and ideas for innovations and improvements to elevate nursing practice and define what it means to provide compassionate and connected care. We see your passion to comfort and desire to care and are filled with gratitude and humbled to work for you and alongside you every day. A nurse is a very understanding and helpful person, strong, but at the same time, sweet, with an incredible vocation of service, which is very important for patients to recover their health. Nursing has been a profession with high standards and a strong sense of public service for over 150 years. Nurses are amongst the most respected of all our professions. Is the future of nursing as a profession, not its past, that makes me confident about the young women and men undertaking their nursing education today. Nursing will play an even greater role in delivering a better, sooner, more convenient healthcare service for Filipinos and other countries. As a health society advisor, I encourage you to join the prepared activities for Nurses Week. Special thanks to the Health Society officers school year 2021 to 2022 with the leadership of Ms. Nori Omas and to Sir Prince Renner V. Pera, Dean of College of Nursing. Thank you for inviting me here today. I am honored to help mark Nurses Week and to celebrate the people who are part of the backbone of our health system. Once again, a pleasant morning to everyone.
Thank you, Ma'am Zanyatang Maging, for that wonderful remarks. Moving forward, let's listen to Health Society Vice Governor, Ms. Maribel Manuel, for the welcoming address.
Good morning, everyone. I'm your Vice Governor, Maribel Manuel, and to our very supportive and full of wisdom Dean, to our energetic clinical instructors, and to all aspiring future RNs, I want to greet you all a happy Nurses Week. It is a pleasure to start this auspicious 2021 Nurses Week with the theme Nurses, a voice to lead, a vision for the future healthcare. Being a nurse or even a student nurse, there are times that you are experiencing sleepless nights, taking vital signs, and most importantly, giving patient care. We have all the responsibilities and roles in healthcare industry. A nurse's job is very demanding as it is very physical and truly challenging profession. But seeing people or the patients happy and appreciating what we are doing to make them healthier make us smile despite of our struggles. Let's have an example. The nurse, Mary Lorraine Pingol, who walked in the street and saw a mother who is about to give birth. She was the first one who responded to the woman who delivered her baby without hesitation, and it is indeed not all superheroes wear capes. In summary, nurses are selfless. Our patient is our topmost priority. Through our intelligence, experience, and compassion, we are the healing hands that people seek in desperate times. Again, Good morning to all of you and happy Nurses Week.
Thank you, Miss Maribel Manuel. Let's look back and remember how everything began.
During the Crimean War, more soldiers died from infection than in battle. Until a nurse introduced sanitary practices still in use today. The scourge of polio hit the world. It was standard practice to strap down and immobilize patients. Until a nurse discovered that movement and physical therapy had far better results. In the 1950s, jaundice was a leading cause of infant death, until a nurse found that a few hours of sunlight could actually cure the condition. At the dawn of the AIDS epidemic, no one knew how the disease spread, so patients were kept quarantined and alone, until nurses defied convention and embraced them with compassion. During the Ebola outbreak, the disease was thought by many to be too contagious to treat, until a student nurse used what she had on hand, garbage bags and duct tape, to protect herself so she could care for others. And cerebral palsy robbed many patients of their ability to speak, until a nurse gave them back their voices. And I will always be grateful to her.
Maybe you will be the next one who can make a difference. Just always remember why you are here and what you want to be. Nursing is a long run, but at the end of it, you will savor the sweet aroma of success. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, let's listen and be inspired. The father of our department, Sir Prince Jenner V. Pera, RN, MSN, EMT.
Hello, good morning, nurses all over the world. Ayan, so that was one inspiring video from Johnson & Johnson's. So I hope that, of course, you will be the next leaders of your generation, and you will be part of this humanity. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are celebrating the Nurses Week, which has taken on greater meaning than ever before, with the COVID-19 pandemic shining a spotlight on nurses' contributions to humanity. We're being universally hailed and trusted. We are the #1 trusted professionals in the world for our courage, for putting our lives on the line to help those stricken with infirmities, comforting families with their patients on deathbeds, and for our compassion to patients. We saw this virus impact every part of nursing within our system, from hospitals, from temporary treatment facilities, community isolation units, and even you students who should be learning the concepts of your profession in the appropriate institutions of learning had been greatly affected by this pandemic. In each area, I have seen nurses spend countless hours taking care of patients at the front line, and others spending countless hours to develop, they train and improve our response to support those at the front line. With you, our students, we were witness to the struggles you faced with the blended learning platform implemented during the advent of the pandemic. Marami ang nahirapan, marami ang nag-struggle, marami ang nag-adjust since some of you do not have the resources. Wala silang mga laptop, wala silang mga gadgets, wala silang mga printers, wala silang mga books, or even reference materials to help them during this time of pandemic. But to those of us in the profession and about to enter the profession, this is nothing new. The competencies we're marshalling against COVID-19 are nothing more or less than the bedrock values of our profession. These values represent a commitment we each make the day we decide to enroll in this profession. And no matter what is happening in the world, no matter what the circumstances might arise as our careers would evolve. This is an ethos that was born in the middle of 19th century, and you have seen Florence Nightingale caring for the sick, for the wounded soldiers in the Crimean War, and was the first conceiving of the profession as we know it today. Among her legacies is nursing's commitment to serve patients at every level of society, regardless of their race, their gender, their political affiliation, and their religion, and to respond to the call of duty in any situation, even on the battlefield. Today, as we mark the Nurses Week signed into law by then President Garcia, we pay tribute to that foundation laid over a century ago, and to nurses' enduring role as what I like to call the backbone and the heart of healthcare. Nursing, now more than ever, is central to the healthcare system's structure and essence, and my hope is that our collective voice will continue not just to be heard, but will be accorded ever more resonance and influence, that our expertise together with our contributions will not just be sought out, but will be celebrated for generations and centuries to come. In our Nurses Week, we recognize how valuable our profession is as it displays the numerous career paths you can take as a nurse. You can be a nurse in the hospital, in the clinics, in the community, in transportation systems like in the plane or in the ship. You can be a nurse. I believe even though I was only forced by my parents a long time ago to enroll in this profession, that nursing is a beautiful profession that bridges the gap between looking at the physical damage a person has, along with all the extra pieces that makes them who they are. This week helps me to remember the depth of possibilities that exist within the nursing profession, as well as the long and remarkable history of how nursing has evolved during or over the years. Today, I honor you, the faculty, the students, and alumni for your most valued service to our school and our profession. And as we start the events this semester with the Nurses Week celebration, I encourage you all to remember the reasons why you entered this profession. I know that majority of you would like to be of service to humanity. Yan ang unang-unang dahilan kung bakit kayo nag-enroll ng nursing. But maybe some of you, of course, would like to lift their families out of poverty. But of course, some of you also thought that nursing is a stepping stone for your plans to migrate to the land of milk and honey. Whatever your reasons are, whatever the cases may be, I still congratulate you for securing your ticket to heaven when you enrolled in this profession. And before I end, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Health Society headed by Ms. Nori Omas, and of course to their advisors for your selfless commitment to serve your fellow students. I commend your dedication and your sacrifices to invite everyone from BSN 1, 2, 3, and 4 to engage in all of your activities despite the restrictions that we are facing right now. And so, I am urging especially the lower years, our freshmen and our sophomore students to play a part in this momentous occasion. This is a welcome get-together set for you by your ates and kuyas. Again, Happy Nurses Week at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you, sir. Your words will surely remain closely to our hearts. Let nurses' hidden talents and skills be showcased.
And now, our Nurses Week is officially open.
Nurses are the heart of healthcare, so be safe and always remember to take care of your health. Thank you and God bless.